Hello and welcome to another Cliff Reviews Art House. This time I'm reviewing the film One Life, directed by James Hawes. So this film tells the true story of Nicholas Winton. He was a London stockbroker who became passionate about rescuing predominantly Jewish children from the Nazi invasion of Czechoslovakia. The plot jumps between his efforts in 1938 and his life in 1988. Anthony Hopkins plays the 1988 version of the character and Johnny Flynn the earlier version. There's a lot that's good about this film. First and foremost, it's a story that is definitely worth telling, and it makes for a very emotional and entertaining film. And when I say emotional, I really mean it. It's been a while since I've heard so much sniffling in the cinema. This is definitely a tearjerker, and yes, I wasn't immune to this either. Sometimes I do find it refreshing to be swept up by a film with the emotional release that comes with the tears. And at this level, I was emotionally involved and I enjoyed the experience. However, the fact that a film is a tearjerker doesn't mean that it's automatically a good film. I do have some mixed feelings about One Life. But let's start with what's good about it. First, I did feel that this story has a contemporary relevance to the current hostile environment towards refugees that the UK and the UK popular press has created. There's a really poignant line where Winton says, "Ordinary people wouldn't stand for this if they knew what was happening." I would hope that when people who are fearful of immigrants, due to the hysteria generated in the press, when they see this film, they might interpret today's news about refugees in a different way as a result of seeing One Life. I've reviewed a few films over the past year that served this function. Particularly strong for me was On Our Doorstep, but The Old Oak and We Dare to Dream were also good. I didn't review it, but even The Swimmers, a new film on Netflix, might serve this function. The other positive thing I can say concerns the acting performances. It's a joy to see Anthony Hopkins in this role. He's such a good actor. In fact, he's a joy to watch in any film. I think he plays this role perfectly. Winton kept a low profile, and until he was outed on a popular TV programme, he wanted to keep the focus on the refugees. Hopkins was totally convincing as this humble, slightly vulnerable but determined man. Johnny Flynn was also fantastic as the young Winton. He was totally convincing as a young Anthony Hopkins. As it flipped between the two actors, I always felt it was the same person. I think this is an achievement when you're being compared to the amazing Hopkins. Although it's only a small part, Helena Bonham Carter is really enjoyable in the film too. Okay, that's the positives. Looking beyond the really important subject matter, I did feel that the filmmaking was so conventional and unimaginative. If you've seen the trailer, you may think, I know what type of film that's going to be. And it is exactly that film. In this way, there's nothing about this which makes it a cinematic experience. It does have the feel of a made-for-TV movie, I think. That said, I mentioned that I joined in the communal tears at the film. This actually is an important cinematic experience, I think. Perhaps the message of this film is so important that there's just no need to take any artistic risks in terms of how it's put together. There's one final point that I wondered. When Winton turns up in Prague, he meets a group of women who are already working on the matter. He's a stockbroker who initially has gone over just for a week. He turns up and it just felt to me like he was a little bit arrogant in implying that they weren't doing enough. The fact that it was a man with no experience of working with refugees coming in and telling a group of women how they should be running their operation slightly jarred. There were some other men involved in the operation, so I'm not sure that there is quite the gender point I'm making here, but it did just strike me that there was something arrogant about his approach, and the film doesn't in any way acknowledge or explore this. Perhaps this is factually exactly what happened. Perhaps he did genuinely have ideas and contacts that they hadn't thought of. Perhaps without him, the 669 children would not have been saved. All possible. But in terms of the narrative of the film, this was a point that jumped out at me. I can't see that anyone else has raised the point in reviews or discussion on the web, so maybe I shouldn't be throwing a potential spoke in here. At the end of the day, this isn't art house cinema, so I shouldn't be critiquing it too harshly. As a film whose focus is to tell this important story and perhaps get people to reflect on contemporary refugee attitudes, I think it does a pretty good job. Despite my criticism of it, I would actually recommend it, but definitely have a tissue ready for the end. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.